Like, he represents to me, like, FOMO on the dating apps almost. Like, it will always go on there and slay, you know? So then how do you settle down? How do you settle down always knowing someone could be around the corner that could be better for you?
Hi all, we're Kelly and Julie and we're here to find love. Today we are talking about the season premiere of Clayton's season. So we are on season 26, episode 1, and we are talking about first impressions. We have our new contestants, our new slate of women who will be competing for Clayton's heart. Before we dive in, we have so many new subscribers here. Welcome to Here to Find Love. We're so excited to have you. If you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the little bell so you get notifications for our videos. If you are new here, a little bit about us. Julie and I were both dating coaches. We work one-on-one with folks, helping people figure out how to navigate their dating lives and how to have happy, healthy relationships. So when we watch The Bachelor and talk about The Bachelor as a show, we're taking what's presented to us on this show and we're using it as a jumping off place to talk about dating themes and dynamics that commonly come up in relationships in real life. So as a heads up, like when we talk about Clayton or we talk about any contestant on this show, we're not really analyzing them, you know, as like Clayton, the real guy, and who he is in real life. We're really just analyzing him and these contestants almost as like fictional pop culture examples of these dating dynamics. You know, we know that what we see on this show is just highly produced and we're basically talking about, you know, a storyline that's being presented to us. And we're really just trying to talk about like what can we learn from these episodes about relationships more so than we're trying to talk about what really happened in real life, because we don't know. We don't really know what's happening in real life for these contestants. So
we don't know. We're just here for the drama. We're here to just like us two like people that just like enjoy the show from like that perspective. And when we do have opinions about the contestants, it's not necessarily representative of how we like perceive them to be in reality.
Okay, so with that said, let's get into this Bachelor recap. Let's start with what we thought about Clayton as the Bachelor. Julie, you want to get us started?
Yeah, so Clayton. I mean, I feel like I've been very transparent about my opinions towards Clayton, Kelly. I think that there were like a lot of other really amazing BIPOC contestants that could have like deserved this platform, but I do think Clayton, watching the episode last night, my opinions about him are slowly shifting because I do think that he has this really lovely energy. He has this really open, tender-hearted sincerity that's really sweet to see in dating. Like, it's very, very clear that he's excited to be the Bachelor, that he's appreciative of the opportunity, and he really sees all of the women there as an opportunity to, like, truly find love and get married. I believe it more so than any other contestants that have come on the show. Like, it doesn't feel like he's, like, fame hungry as much as he's, like, this person that is aware of the incredible opportunity that he has, that he is getting 30 women handpicked, selected for eligibility for him to date. Like, I think he's very aware of that dynamic. So it's really lovely to see that. I think in dating in general, it's really nice to be with someone that, like, you can tell they really want to be there. They really want to get to know you. They really want to, like, see where something can lead. And I also think that he is going to be a little bit like putty in the producer's hands. I kept seeing some scenes last night where I was like, oh my gosh, he seems a little bit more suggestible than maybe other contestants have been, and that speaks to that sincerity, like that open-heartedness of him maybe believing that they have his best interest at heart when they're also very interested in, like, you know, getting the ratings up and like wanting to make his season dramatic. So they might be like artificially creating some situations for him to get in that maybe are not the best for him. So I'm a little bit worried about that.
This actually ties really well into like that first scene with Salley, the woman who was previously engaged, and it was the weekend of her wedding and she wanted to break up with Clayton. And this was like, it was the first time something like this has happened on this show. So in that sense, it was like interesting, but it did definitely feel like very heavily like producer like constructed. So the scene was kind of hard to take seriously. It seemed like that woman, Salley, was just like, told the producers, hey, I want to leave. And they were probably just like, hey, like, before you leave, we want to film you breaking up with Clayton. And she was like, okay. So she just like went and told Clayton. And then it kind of, this like strange scene unfolded with him. But I think one thing that I pulled from that scene was, to your point, Julie, I felt like Clayton, he was just so genuine, even in this scene that felt so contrived.
Like manufactured.
Right.
Yes.
It was like so contrived, but, you know, Clayton was still just like, you know, like the producers probably are asking me to give this rose to this girl, but like also she seems nice and like I could like this girl, and like I feel like like one of my main takeaways about Clayton, or one opinion I'm forming about Clayton from what we're seeing so far on this show, is that I feel like he is just the kind of guy who's just like ultra compatible with just like a lot of different people. Like I get the sense that he, you know, he is a little bit of that stereotypically attractive white dude who plays sports that I think a lot of, who's like big and muscly, that I think a lot of straight women, you know, are attracted to. And I think that he is very, like, I think there's like so many women who will find him attractive and so many women who will find him desirable. And I think that feeling goes both ways. It's going to be so easy for him to connect with so many different types of people, because I think a lot of people are going to find him desirable, and I think that he's going to be, like, I don't think he's, I guess what I mean is, like, I don't get the sense that he's particularly discerning about, or has, like, a particularly strong sense of, like, his type, if that makes sense. Like, I just think that he's going to be pretty, like, oh, like, fun, pretty girl, cool, yeah, I like that. Like, fun, pretty girl who, like, also wants the same things as me, cool, yeah. Like, I don't think it's going to be as hard for him to find someone who's like a good fit for him, because I just think a lot of people will probably be a good fit for Clayton, or a guy like Clayton. So, you know, I think the scene between him and Salley was like very indicative of that, of like they met for 3 minutes and they were both like, oh yeah, well, we would probably be compatible. And I, to be honest, I kind of was like, I agree. Like I saw that scene and I was like, yeah, I'm sure you two would be compatible. Like it just, you know, there was just something that just felt very like easy and natural about it. And I don't think it had to do with the fact that Salley and Clayton in particular are soulmates, as much as it had to do with the fact that I think Clayton is just a very, you know, a lot of people are going to be compatible with Clayton. And yeah, I think it speaks to like what we're seeing in the previews too, which is that he's eventually going to say I love you to 3 women, is what we're seeing in the previews, or what they seem to be teasing. And I think that kind of fits in with what I'm observing from him, which is that I think it's pretty easy for him to connect with people. I think it's pretty easy for people to connect with him. So.
Oh my gosh, that's an excellent observation, because I totally agree. And we spoke about this a little bit before. Like, I feel like if I'm dating someone, I'm kind of like an obscure indie song that you like. If you know the band, you like me. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you really like look for the record. You go to these shows with a really small following. That's kind of what it's like to date me. Clayton is like a top 40 banger.
Yeah.
You hear him on the radio. He's like, you sing along to it, even though you don't really like the singer, but like the song is really catchy. And I think Clayton has that energy of just being someone that like a lot of people can connect to him. And I do think he is not like, it's not like generic. It's just that he has a very open way of dating. Yeah. And it's not like he's dating and he has like these discernible qualities that maybe Michelle as a lead would have had, where she was like, I need someone that understands my experience as a Black woman, that understands racism. He doesn't have a lot of those same things about like how
laundry
he, like,
list
views,
of things that he needs to agree with people on or something.
It's not as complex as like I need all of these like additional things. It's very much a straightforward, I want a family, you're close to your family, we're attracted to each other, we love traveling together, let's build on this.
Right. Yeah, it's straightforward, and in that way it's like it kind of makes me think about how laughable the tagline of the season is, which is like everyone loves an underdog, and it's like obviously Clayton is not an underdog.
He's a puppy dog.
Yeah. He's a puppy dog, exactly. He's definitely not an underdog because, like, you know, not only is he stereotypically attractive, like attractive athlete, white man, like the kind of caricature of what America loves in men. Not only is he that, but he's also like you know, just so, like, easy to like. It's, like, very clear. And you can kind of tell just, like, in his confidence, right, throughout the episode. You can tell that he's probably very used to people receiving him in a positive way. Like, as opposed to Michelle, who she tells this whole, like, a really believable story about this idea that she was overlooked throughout her life. Like, Clayton, you really get the sense that people, like, probably loved him. Like, you kind of get the sense that, you know, just from how confident he is, you really do get the sense that, like, he's been probably received pretty well by a lot of people. Even, like, when that woman, Claire, was coming through being like, I hate Clayton, and, like, everyone was so aghast at the idea that someone would not like Clayton. Everyone was like, what? How could you not like this dream guy? Like, what? How could you not like, you know, like, that was everyone's kind of response to that one girl who was, like, not connecting with Clayton. Everyone was, like, a little bit like, oh my gosh, like, if you're not into Clayton, there's something wrong with you. And it's like, I don't agree with that opinion at all, but I do think that it shows a lot about how people view guys like Clayton, right? Like, it shows a lot about the fact that Clayton is not an underdog. Clayton is exactly the kind of guy who everyone assumes everyone likes and who most people do like, right? So
yeah, that's a really, really good point, because I do agree that, like, that probably played a huge hand on why they chose him as the lead, because the producers saw him and they saw, like, externally the qualities that he possessed and how he would really engage a huge demographic of, like, not only viewers but people that would be interested in dating someone like him. Because, like, for him to look like that, and it's not saying he's never been through anything bad in his life, of course he has.
Oh, I'm sure.
But for the most part, his privilege of, like, his whiteness and his physical appearance has definitely pushed him in a position where I think he has more opportunities than maybe someone else may have.
Right.
Just because of the way that he looks and the way that he's been raised. It was also, like, indicative of, like, the town he grew up in, that, like, small town in Missouri, Eureka. For the entire town to be around him and rally him like that, it shows that he's grown up in an environment where, like, he was appreciated as a person. And when you have that type of security growing up as a person, you do grow up to be really secure and confident in yourself, because those qualities aren't chafing against you. You weren't, like, an outsider. You weren't, like, sad and wanting to leave it, you know?
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
So I do think, all of that ties into me understanding why he was chosen to be the Bachelor.
Totally.
So we talked about first impressions about Clayton. Now we can talk about some of the first impressions we've seen of the ladies so far, if there's any standouts.
Yeah, I mean, like, that the first episode of any season is always a little bit like, you know, we're just getting introduced to all these characters, and it's kind of hard to pull any specific, like, dating themes out of it, because it's just, you know, introductions, and you get such a short little snippet for each person. Like, all of them still are, like, kind of blurring together in my mind a little bit. But it does make you think about, you know, in general, like, what makes a good first impression? What is it about, like, when you're in the dating pool, like, what is it about people that sticks out? Like, there were a couple of people that were interesting. Like, I think that the people who were more genuine tend to stick out to me, but I think it also really depends. So, you know, Genevieve was someone who, she was one of the girls who, I think she pulled Clayton after there was some drama, and then she was one of the first people who pulled him after the little drama had happened, and they kind of sat by the fireplace and, you know, had, like, a little bit more of, like, a serious talk, and she seemed like more down to earth in comparison to some of the other women who kind of approached this first conversation of I have to be, like, super on, and I have to be super like laughing a lot, and, like, talk about how, oh, I'm a little bit wilder, or, oh, I'm a little bit, like, the kind of girl who likes to live outside her comfort zone. Like, there were a lot of women who were doing a lot of that, a lot of trying to indicate how, like, interesting and different they are. I do think that something about that, it just feels like a little performative, and it makes it a lot harder to understand what these people are really like when they just kind of are like, I'm wild, that's the kind of girl I am. And it's like, I don't know, like, are you wild, or are you just, like, wanting people to perceive you as wild? Like, I don't know. And so
totally. It's like showing, not telling, right? Whenever someone tells me something about them, like, I'm this way, it always makes me say, like, think, why are you having to say that if I could just see it through your demonstrations, through your actions, through your energy?
Right,
you know?
right. And, you know, obviously it's hard because, like, on the show, they don't have enough time to, like, show really, like, a lot. So they have to kind of, like, say it. But I do think that's why people like Genevieve, who wasn't trying to, like, overly, like, perform a certain quality. She was just kind of like, here are the things that I want. Here are the things that I'm thinking about in this moment. And just she seemed just, like, a lot more present. That comes off, like, a lot more genuine to me as opposed to some of the other contestants who it just felt like they were just trying to almost, like, flock their peacock feathers a little bit, you know? And so I think those are the types of first impressions that stick out to me. And I don't think that that's necessarily the same as saying that that's what's going to stick out to everyone. Like, I actually do think that, like, that girl who said the thing about, like, I'm an out of comfort zone type of girl, I think that was Susie, I believe. And actually, I think Susie and Clayton, like, I think Clayton was into that. I do actually think that Clayton was kind of eating that up a little bit, or, like, just kind of into the girls who were going big. Like, I think he was, like, pretty into the Susies and pretty into the Kira, like, the lingerie woman with the doctor's outfit. Like, I think he was pretty into those bolder women as well. And it did seem to me that, like, both tactics seemed to be working, at least on Clayton.
I love that you picked up on that, because I totally agree that, like, my first impressions are the things that I think are really important is if you display a sense of, like, vulnerability and a little bit of, like, leaning into the awkwardness of the moment. I think some people try to sidestep it, or they try to, like, move past it, but I think it's really nice to call it out. Like, this is so weird. I'm really nervous. I really want to meet you. And then, like, being very, very present to, like, that experience of feeling what you're feeling in the moment versus having this script in your mind almost, and then coming to him and regurgitating it because you don't want him to, like, not know these things about you that you deem to be really important. But I think if you just, like, trust the conversation will develop and lead you where it naturally needs to go. And it is very difficult because on the show, like, you have such a limited amount of time. People are stealing him. Like, you know, you just have, like, 2 minutes to make that first impression. But I think those are the ones that really stick out. The ones where it's, like, you can relax a little bit. You can rest with the person around you, you know? Like, it's not like you're just sitting there and someone is just, like, telling you things about them and you're just, like, responding to that. It feels it doesn't feel as engaging as what I said before.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I think I'm on the same page with you, and a lot of people are, but I actually wonder about Clayton. Like, I think Clayton is actually the type of person that you're describing, which is, like, the kind of person who kind of will say a lot a little bit.
I realized that as I was talking about it.
I think Clayton is kind of like that person. So I actually think that for Clayton, maybe that person who's just, like, saying a lot, I think that might actually be attractive to Clayton. I think that he might actually be down for that. And I guess maybe in that way, it just depends on the person and really depends on the individual, like, what individual people are looking for. Like, for me, when someone is, like, saying so much stuff, I'm like, it's too much. Like, it's too much. Like, I don't know. Like, when they're just, like, overly trying to
sensory overload almost.
Well, it's like they're trying to convey. It's, like, so clear that they're trying to portray themselves in a certain way and perform a certain version of themselves. And I think that maybe it's, like, the performative aspect that is so just, like, bothersome to me. But I don't think it's bothersome to everyone. I think that's Clayton was kind of like, oh, look, Susie, she's so exciting and adventurous. Like, I think he kind of was, like, into that. So at the same time, I think he also was into the Genevieves of the situation, like the Genevieves. Like,
right. And I think he's also really aware of the fact that a first impression, it can only say so much. It's so, I think energetically, he was more so reading that. Like, am I attracted to her? Am I, like, feeling her? And it's going back to what we said before about Clayton just being ultra compatible with a lot of people. That will cause a lot of drama this season. Because there will be girls that, like, see themselves a certain way, and they'll be confused why Clayton may like someone else that's
Who's,
so
like, super
different from her.
Yeah. That's a good prediction. I'll be very curious to see if that pans out, but I can totally see exactly that.
Don't you see that? They're like, why can't you see that she's like this bad girl almost, like a villain? And I'm saying that with as much like, that's such a trope that the show really hypes up because people are so much more than like one quality, right?
Right.
But I can see a lot of people on the show confused on why Clayton is keeping certain people around, and I think that compatibility that he has with people that you like brought up spot on is going to be like an ongoing thing for him this season, where he's matching with so many people. He is so intrigued by so many people. It's going to be hard for him to let people go. It's going to be it's going to be difficult.
I'll be curious to see how he approaches that, because you're right, I do kind of get the sense that like all of it, like, it felt like all of the different approaches kind of worked on him. Like, the bold approach worked on him, the genuine approach worked on him. Like, I think he's into it. Like, he likes a lot. Like, he's not particularly, he's not picky, I guess, is what I mean. Like, he doesn't
and picky, like, not in a bad way, just like he's very open.
Right.
He's a very open man.
Yeah, exactly.
It's gonna be hard, and this is a prediction I'm making. I think it's gonna be hard for him to choose who he really wants to be with. Because he can match with so many people, and so many people will match with him. And I think different sides of his personality will be brought out of different people. And it's not like a negative thing, but it's just something that he will have to contend with. Just because he is so ultra compatible. He is so ultra eligible with so many people. How do you make the choice when you're literally... Like, he represents to me, like, FOMO on the dating apps almost. Like, it will always go on there and slay. You know? So then how do you settle down? How do you settle down always knowing someone could be around the corner that could be better for you?
Oh, that's going to be an interesting one to watch, because, you know, I hear people talk about that all the time when they are on dating apps, like this, like, or just like in their dating lives, this fear of like, what if there's someone better for me around the corner? Like, should I actually settle down with this person, or should I wait around and see if there's someone better? And like, I mean, that question itself is always, to me, like, I'm like, I think, but the fact that is what you're concerned about just tells you all you need to know about the person that you're with. Like, if the person that you're with isn't like exciting to you, the idea of spending your life with them isn't exciting to you, then
says everything.
That's all you need to know. Like, that's all you need to know. And it's not about like, is there someone better around the corner? It's just more like, you're not excited by the person that you're with. So anyways, I'll be curious to see how that theme kind of pans out throughout the season and in Clayton's story. Yeah, the only other theme other than this idea of first impressions that was sticking out to me with this season was this whole idea of the kind of virgin whore dichotomy. So, you know, we get Teddi, who is this like drop dead gorgeous woman who the first thing we learn about her is that she's a virgin, and she gets the first impression rose, and she kind of had a very favorable edit in the episode. And then you get other women who are coming in with very kind of sexual entrances, such as Kira, who I think her name was Kira, who was the doctor who came in her lingerie and a doctor's coat. And you see all of the women being like whispering about like, oh my gosh, why would she do that? Like, why would you like just like show everything right at the get-go? There was that one woman who was like, oh my gosh, like who would do that? Like why what's that cow's milk thing? Why buy the cow if you can get the milk for free? Like, it's like, I didn't realize we're in 1968 again. Like, I mean, it's just like, you just see both images being very intentionally crafted. And I think part of this is obviously like production, like kind of crafting this story of like the virgins who are so pure and chaste, and then the women who are more sexual kind of get this like more like critical kind of portrayal, right? And you know, it's old, it's dated. I'm like bored of it as a theme, but it does seem like it's going to be a theme in this season.
I know exactly what you mean. Watching that is something that makes The Bachelor and The Bachelorette different. Like, I feel like with The Bachelorette, the men are more territorial about the woman. Like, they're buddies. But then, like, when it gets to, like, the final 6 or whatever, that's when the men start to get, like, really jealous. Whereas I think on The Bachelorette, there's this like hint of misogyny of like putting the woman down and like seeing them as competition and slut shaming them and seeing someone's confidence in their body as a negative thing, as like not like as a sense of her not being pure or like her not being this like wholesome person that's worthy of being like a wife at the end of the season.
Yeah, there's definitely like an element of that. And it doesn't make any sense because like you can be a sexy wife.
Don't we all like sex? Like I'm confused.
Don't we all aspire to
Isn't that why we're here?
And it just doesn't make, like I just don't understand the criticism. Like I really just fundamentally don't get it because she's sexy. It doesn't mean that she can't also be a great like
person,
romantic partner. Like those things are not exclusive, and there's definitely not this sense of like, oh, if Clayton is sexually attracted to her now, he won't want to continue being sexually attracted to her later. Like I don't get it. Like people don't.
It's like as if the sex, like that's the only thing keeping a man around. The promise of sex. If you give it to him, he will leave you. Like it says everything about a guy if they do that.
Right, and it says a lot about, frankly, anyone who believes that. Like when women say like, oh, like I can't give him sex now because like why would he stay around? It's like, girl, he's gonna stay around because he likes you. Like you're more than your value. You're more than your body, girl. Like honestly, that cow's milk thing is so. Every time I hear someone say that, it's just like, what are you talking about? Like, why buy the cow? Because there's more to a relationship than sex, and like it's like. Did you forget that sex is not the point of a relationship? Like, obviously, it doesn't make sense on its face, that whole kind of criticism of people who are sexual to start with in a relationship. This idea that you can only give sex to a man, like, when you've locked them down. It's just a very strange way to think about sex. It just doesn't make sense to me to think about sex as something that will arbitrate whether or not someone is going to stay with you, because relationships are so much more than just sex. So it doesn't matter if you have sex when you first meet. It doesn't matter if you want to wait until you get married and have sex. That's all fine. But like the sex is not going to be the decision making point about whether or not you're a good couple and whether or not someone is going to want to be with you. It's just not. And I think that's the thing about the virgin whore thing that is so annoying to me, is that they emphasize it as if it's like this like personality trait. And it's not really a personality trait, honestly. It's like, if you don't want to have sex until marriage, cool. But like there's so much other cool things about Teddi that I would have rather focused on rather than the show like kind of like emphasizing that she's like a virgin. And likewise, like the fact that they kind of reduced Kira to like this like sex blob is like also kind of annoying, because there's just so much more to people than whether or not that they have sex and when they choose to have sex. So I think that's the part of it that is annoying, and I'm sure it's going to continue to be a theme in this season just based on the previews. Let us know down below, are there themes that you have been picking up on from this episode or from the previews that you think are going to be in this season that you're excited to see pan out? Are there themes related to dating and related to relationships that you want us to talk about, or that you think that we should be paying attention to this season? Leave them down below so we can keep an eye on them and make sure to bring them up in our future episode recaps.
So that's everything for Clayton's first episode. It was just the first episode. I feel like there's not too much to pick up on. We decided not to do a Bachelor League for this season because there was a lot of... They've really just told us everything about who Clayton is going to be. Yeah. It was pretty... it just gave us all of the tea. Next season, we are thinking about doing a Bachelor League with all of you. Please join us. Feel the competitiveness of Kelly's energy. So if you are interested, drop a comment down below. Make sure to subscribe, turn on the bell for notifications, and comment what you thought about like our thoughts so far about Clayton season. And that's everything from us. We'll be back next week, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.